like, comment, and subscribe.
For today's Let's Talk Jinx, I'm going to pitch you a question. Hear me out. Is Jinx actually too balanced? And I know this sounds like a ridiculous question or a very biased question from a Jinx main to other Jinx mains, but I ask this question because the conversation constantly comes up lately about does Jinx need like a rework or like a major set of buffs and stuff like that. And obviously people have their various opinions on why that would be to begin with, be it just the meta needs to change for her, or maybe the builds could be better for AD carries in general, and that's what they're working on in the preseason anyways. Things like that, like other AD carries just coming out with so many different abilities. It feels like older AD carries are being outclassed by them, etc, etc. But what I mean by too balanced is when I look at Jinx and I look at her strengths are actually still there all these years later, right? If you get enough crit on her, you get enough attack speed on her, you can not only hyper carry and be good in the late game, but you could possibly even snowball through the mid game and win before the late game if you're doing well enough the way her kit's designed for taking down towers, if you rotate, how fast you can take dragons and barons to their team and things like that as well, right? That's always been a thing and it still is a thing. It's not like she's really lost power there. For a split second she kind of did when they nerfed her in season 5, patch 522 specifically. It kind of stayed that way throughout season 6 for a while until like 6.10. And then of course there's the AD carry changes in like 8.11 that kind of shook all the AD carries up. But in general, especially once we get on the other side of season 8 where they gave Jinx a buff, and then season 9 where they gave her another buff where they gave her minigun attack speed back that they took away from her back in patch 5.10, which is very exciting for me as a longtime Jinx player. Right, her power's still been there on the offensive side basically, right? They haven't really nerfed her either on her offensive side since then as well, all things considered. One thing though that I guess what I'm asking is the issue is her weaknesses are too open of a window, right? Like when you're playing against a fed Jinx, as long as you have the tools, of course, you already know what you need to do to shut down a fed Jinx. And that's not necessarily a problem, right? Like the thing about champions and Riot's design philosophy, at least for a while, it probably might have changed from the last time I had this conversation with various writers, is they would always want to try and nerf weaknesses instead of nerfing strengths, so that way it's still enjoyable to play a champion, right? That way the champion can still be strong in what it's supposed to be doing in the phases of the game it's supposed to be strong in, like a Jinx, but that way people playing against it could feel like, oh, but I still feel like I have these windows of opportunity to deal with this champion. And that way, the idea behind the philosophy was, then the champion would never actually have to be nerfed, be allowed to be strong, and then also be something that people feel like they could play against comfortably, right? So with Jinx, right? For one, mobility. Her mobility is one of the lowest mobilities of the AD carries right now, because that's been a thing kind of built into her kit, was to be low mobility, basically. She needs peel and protection. If she doesn't have those, there's a good chance you can pick her off by herself or something like that, right? Furthermore, the Flame Chompers, even having an arm time is a little bit of weakness opening up, because they're not like immediate thing, they're not like a point and click kind of a thing, they're not really a skill shot you can try and throw to outsmart someone who's trying to outsmart you. You throw them down like a wall. If people get around them, they get around them. They can't jump over them anymore. They did do a change in season 7 that does prevent people from jumping over the Flame Chompers, which is pretty nice. But in general, like Jinx has ways you play against her. One of the main ones is you just have a bunch of hard engage and point and click stuff, right? An example of this is even a really mobile AD carry like Kalista. I was on a team once where I was playing top lane Vi, we had a jungle Nautilus, and we had a mid lane Zed, and if one of us didn't press R on Kalista, someone else would, and the Kalista would die. So even on mobile champions, there's certain tools you can have, if you have enough of them at least, to deal with those. So on an immobile champion like Jinx, there definitely are windows of opportunity, and that's what I mean by too balanced, right? Even when Jinx has been strong in past metas, you don't really see Reddit complaining about her at like the top post being, Jinx is busted, when is Riot gonna delete this champion, etc, etc. For the most part, her ban rate even stays relatively low as under 2% even when she's powerful, because people feel like they know what to do against a Jinx, and or the meta is so weird that a meta that enables Jinx to be strong is also just a weird meta in general, so there's just several more things more powerful to complain about than Jinx anyways. It could be either of those two things, of course, but if Jinx is powerful, people feel like they know how to play against her. They feel like it's not much of a problem. They feel like it's not much of an issue, that she's not as crazy as a Xayah or a Kai'Sa or an Aphelios or something like that. Now sure, if you want to go back to season 3, on release Jinx that could out jungle Lee Sin, yeah, that might be an issue, but obviously they changed that. Like with most release champions, there's several follow-up nerfs that need to be applied, and Jinx was no exception in that regards. To this day, if you see someone jungling Jinx that wasn't like a OG season 3 player, you might dodge immediately. If not, just uninstall the game and just wonder how that even came to be in the first place, that they'd beat jungle and they would lock in Jinx. I get it. But with Jinx specifically, I guess the thing I'm asking is, when I say too balanced, is there too much you can do against her right now? Or is she actually probably a good example of a balanced AD carry in terms of, yeah, she's powerful when she gets her items, she's powerful if she snowballs the lane, she's powerful if she does the other things, and she has meaningful weaknesses you can actually play against. And that's actually a problem with other AD carries, is it doesn't feel like you can play against them as much. If anything, they're the issue. Jinx isn't the issue, they're the issue. But because this seems to be a direction AD carries are going, with being able to do like a bajillion things in terms of protecting their own weaknesses, Jinx now seems like a problem in comparison, because she doesn't do that, right? If she's immobile, she does have her passive, which gives her movement speed, but that's gated by being successful by some means or another. You don't just need to press the passive button and then just get the movement speed for free. It's not like Azir with his tower, and this is not a knock at Azir, but I'm saying like he's an example of a champion whose passive you press on something, a destroyed tower, to summon a tower, and that's how you use it. Jinx is not in that scenario where if you're getting ran down, you can press your passive button, you can press a little icon on the bar or whatever, and get a burst of movement speed, and then it goes on a cooldown even if you get resets, right? That's not something that actually exists. That's not even a rework idea that's ever come up, where it's like, hey, what if we allowed you to use Get Excited for free like that, but then it's on a cooldown for like a minute, and then even if you're getting kills, you won't be able to get excited, right? It just feels more core to the kit to let Jinx be able to get excited off of kills and stuff, but there's a risk there. There's a risk in, okay, well, if you get excited and you run into the enemy trying to get another kill and it goes wrong, you're dead. If you use the movement speed to reposition, you might not be able to get follow-up kills and keep getting excited, and things like that. Maybe it's more of an in-between, however you actually use that movement speed when you get that burst of excitement. That's the idea. That's kind of the itch why people want to play Jinx sometimes, is that risk-reward factor and how well they feel that's designed. That being said, is that an issue though? Is that an issue for Jinx? Because for me personally, if I was supposed to interject my own opinion, which I usually reserve not to, but if I did as a fellow Jinx main, for me I feel like it's more of the other AD carries just doing too much. I feel like in the way League is, like rioters will say there's not been a power creep, there's never been a power creep, the power creep doesn't exist. I will say, look at Aphelios and then look at Jinx. There's definitely been some difference there between 2013 and 2020. If you don't want to call it a power creep, that's fine, because I think that maybe has a lot of negative connotations, and maybe that's why rioters say there isn't a power creep. I can understand that, but there's definitely a difference between like when they decided how Jinx was going to be, how they decided Jinx was going to have weaknesses and strengths, and how Aphelios was going to be, and how he was kind of nerfed several dozen times after he came out. And to the point that they're finally actually buffing him in the current, and going into patch 10.19, I should say, not the current patch. So that's basically the point of this conversation, is just kind of talk about Jinx. Is she too balanced, quote unquote, or other AD carries making her seem too balanced even? Is that why people actually want the rework for Jinx sometimes? Is because they feel like, well, if these other AD carries are going to be this wild, why not the craziest, wildest AD carry personality wise get to be kind of crazy a little bit and kind of funky as well? Maybe that's not the case. Comment though in the comment section down below, and that's going to be the conclusion of this video. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, the actual subscribe button, but I don't know what video would be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until next time, take care, ggGetJinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.